So we're getting close to, or we have a majority, Meg, so maybe if you wanted to, you could start screen sharing and then, so the format for this, guys, is Meg's gonna walk through the process, just doing it on her screen. And then if there's any questions, now's the time to ask. The goal would be to standardize the whole process and kind of redo it most likely, so that it can just be done with a lot less effort and fixes required on her end.
Yes, so I will start screen sharing now. Nice to meet all of you. So this is the first time I've seen everyone all in this square.
Thank you, Megan, for all your work so far. Also,
thank you.
That's a chorus from everybody.
Always glad to help. Yeah. So we're trying the definite, yeah, as Adam says, definite goal to get everyone on the same page. I hope you can all hear me okay. It's good. All right. And to have all of your files packaged so that when we link them into a master file, everything's super smooth. In the Google Drive folder that you have of assignment 4, I've gone ahead and made folders for everyone in here. So something to note right off the bat is that all of your old files are in this archive folder. And again, I'm going to talk through a lot of different things today of material, saving files, naming conventions, and then how we're going to be using this. So if anyone has questions, you can feel free to probably put it in the chat so I see it, but I can stop and answer anything, or at the end, whatever you prefer. But so in here, everyone has a folder. For instance, Maya's, there is a folder for 3D, which is your Rhino file, images. I'm going to talk through, actually back up one step. So directions. In here, there's a template file that I'm going to go into in a bit, where you're going to place your files so that everyone has a coordinate, or so that everything's manually placed correctly. The first thing you should open is this sharing sheet. I'm going to open it on my PDF instead because it's better for me to see. But in here, it's similar to the cargo one, as you can tell. I've set up different tips to start with the language that is Rhino and understanding materials and what we're doing, what you all are doing with your projects. And then on the second page are the steps. So on here, I've taken a screenshot, or I've gotten a screenshot from Will. I'm going to be showing example student files of Will and Zoe for the purpose of talking through naming conventions, and then what like might work for everyone. We're going to walk through that. But basically, this is a really great start of how to set up your file saving. So this is something that should be pretty standard to yourself and like how you organize your own stuff. But what I like to do is have a file with 3D, 2D, and then images. This condenses all of your programs and keeps them perfectly together. I'm saying this only because I think that it'll help you, it'll help your future projects, it'll help situations especially, it'll help like when you start having multiple files in multiple places and textures and colors and everything, this is key. And this along with layering. So steps in Rhino, we're going to get into this. I added a support doc for stuff that's in Mac versus PC. I know there's a number of you using Mac, so I've mentioned a different way that I think might be better for Mac that I was reading into. Again, that's something to note here. So I'm going to keep that on this side for me. And first, okay, so these are the two major things to look at first. Download this template file, download the directions. Oh, sweet, great. So Mac save from command line works. That's awesome. Thank you, Maya. That's really good to know. I was worried about that for a second. So to start, I've got an example file here, and I'm just going to quickly talk through, you're all using textures, you're using materials, you know kind of how this works, and you've been trial and erroring it yourselves. But with one thing, I noticed in a lot of people's files that materials are kind of all over the place. So when that happens, sharing files or looking back on files, Rhino will create default folders and folders and folders of all of your swatches of materials, and it gets chaotic. So if you want to quickly see what I'm talking about, I'll show you what did on my end. Oops, here we go. So when I compiled all of your folders and files, Rhino kind of gave me this, and you can see how this gets messy. And this is something that you're going to want to be really, really super aware of in this process, so that when you do share files with people or yourselves, or every changing between formats, you don't get this. One thing to note also before I start, I know that a lot of you downloaded things from SketchUp or other places, OBJ files, totally cool, you can do that. But something that is probably something you've noticed is that that file is embedded with other materials from other files from other people. So and that's a lot of the time you don't need that stuff. Like you're going to be changing the texture of a SketchUp model, or you're going to be wanting to manipulate it yourself. The purge command in Rhino can take out unused groups, textures, patterns, materials. You're definitely going to want to do that. So when you go back to your file today, tomorrow, this week, be sure to start. If you need to go back and start by purging materials, do that. It's important, because then otherwise you are going to be getting folders like the one I just showed you on your own end, and you don't want that. You don't want to get like all the mess that is that for your insanity, I'm sure, like on your own saving. But so, okay, now we're in Rhino. I am using, again, this is a quick overview. Then we're going into student files of Zoe and Will's. So material wise, these blocks here are mapped by object. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the ones by layer. By object means that I've selected this object, and I have picked the material that it should be based over here. Sorry. So I've gone in and I've picked that I want it to be grass. And I know that you all have seen how to do updating new materials, how to make custom materials. So if anyone has questions on that, ask them now, but this is how you would do that. So that's by object. I've selected that. It has a material. And also this one has a decal. So there's a decal on this one that I've placed on top. It's planar, and it is on top of that. When we go into things like Enscape or further, you have to worry about baking these things. But if you're working in Rhino, your files are embedded, you don't have to worry about that. The decal sits as like a sticker. You can click this little widget, as some of you might have figured out, and you can move it. This will only edit where the decal is. You can scale it from there. That's a quick thing on that. So then there's such a thing as that's adding materials by object. I've hand selected all of these. I've added them and edited them individually. The edit by layer is different. So when you do materials by layer, I have all of my objects on my one layer. I've assigned a material to them. Now, again, to preface, I'm only showing you this because I think I've noticed with everyone's different files, everyone's doing it differently. People have roaming materials in different places. Things are unlinked, things are lost. If you go forward with a different way of how you want to do by layer or by object, or how you do materials, totally okay. Just, kind of be consistent, or know where your objects are, know where your materials are. It'll save you time and so much worry. So especially when you get a lot of materials and objects in here. So this is on layer one, and something that's what I like to do when you work by layer is each object should be on a layer. So if I had a piece on top of this, it would have a part, and that would be on its own layer. Anything that is the working by layer kind of organizationally, you can do it however you want. But I prefer to do it like by pieces. So if you had a couch with pillows, each cushion might be on its own layer. That sounds excessive, but it's definitely helpful for materials. Or you could do all the cushions on one layer, all the pegs on another layer of the couch. the pillows on a different layer. It's best to kind of divide and subdivide as much as you can to keep your model as clean as possible with the materials. Now, again, this is the bilayer option. So if you're doing object stuff, totally okay. There's a little bit more of keeping track of that on your end though, versus here. So when you're working by layer, of course, I've clicked on these and can do a material this way. I can either add materials or use existing ones. Now you might have noticed stripes is on here twice. So if I click this, as you can see, it's objects, these two different objects. Some of you might have picked up on that Rhino is already giving you alerts of creating editable copies. This is good. This is great. This means that Rhino's telling me, hey, if I edit the material of this, which is stripes, I will also inevitably be editing this material. So that's key because you don't want to be editing over your own stuff, right? So if you just click this, I mean, then I get stripes 1, which I can rename to be stripes 2. This works great. Okay, so now again, when we're done with this file, and I've got it all ready, this is my example file for what would be this thing I'd submit or want to share. We're going to our save options, a number of different options, but basically, as long as textures are being saved in some way, it works. So I'm going to do, and this is really, really important. So you can't just do save. If you've done save as, I click check textures, right? So this is my first time saving. I've done save textures down here, done. And then I re-update my file or I add new textures and whatnot. I need to do that again. So you can't just hit save and then assume that textures will be updated because I'm not sure they will. It's kind of iffy. Rhino doesn't have a clear answer on that. So always, always, always do save as with textures. Now, again, the thing that's key here that I think is going to be very important for all of you is when you are saving this, you must have set up a good file format for your project folders. It's definitely something that will make things be easier if everything's in relatively the same folders, like linked together near each other. That's key because then Rhino will be referencing that. Rhino disperses things on a number of tabs. So for instance, I click save texture. Some of you might have noticed on your end that you are getting, when you do that, you're getting this folder called embedded files, right? Maybe it looks familiar, maybe it doesn't, but if you click on that, you're going to notice all your textures are in there. This is great. This is Rhino's way of packaging your file. That's why we're doing that. So that's why you're always going to be clicking save textures and you'll have that. So we'll have this file. You're going to upload this with your model. Everything's good. Just go to chat. Oh, so it won't be save as template. If you do the command line of save, Andrew, that's what's going to work. So on the note sheet, then I think you can get textures from there. Maybe someone could clarify that for sure. But yeah, so again, these are resting in my desktop, this and this, but ideally I would be in a folder with everything. So I've got an example folder here with 3D and images. And so that's where like my original file and all of my Photoshop and my exported JPEGs and materials would live. Everything would be in here, for example, like on your system, so that you can have things packaged easily. Now, again, if you lose things or if things get lost into your system and computer, there are ways internal to Rhino to look up paths. I mean, I'm sure that some of you have clicked on things or you've noticed down here that you can see the material and you can find a way where it is, right? But it's good to know to keep track of where things are. So now I'm going to jump in through examples of Zoe's and Will's. And, it's important to note that I picked Zoe's and Will's because I think that they were starting to do kind of like a layer naming convention. They also I mean, you all have great models. Okay, I feel like I know all your files very well by this point. But I also like that they were each doing different methods of textures. Zoe in particular was doing a bit of the material by layer assignment. And then Will on his file was doing more of the by object. However, he had a decal. So I thought that that was important. I don't know how many of you are using decals. Again, decals are when you've got your object, like a sticker right here that you've uploaded. It's not entirely a material in its own, but when you bake it, it becomes one. In the note sheet that I've uploaded in the directions, you can read more about decals and materials and how those two are similar but different in their own, or how they each become different textures that you use. But so what we're going to do is, okay, so I've gone in and I've been in my template file and that I made for you all that is in that folder in directions. That file is basically a thing of just for everyone. So you're gonna have to count out where you are. This is one. Will is last. So I placed his model there. What you're gonna do is you're gonna copy from clipboard the thing. I'll walk through that quick because I think it's a little, I mean, I'm sure you all have copied stuff, but it's different from just typing copy into everything. So here's the master file. So this is like a little bit of what I'll be working with when I'm grabbing your file. And I've already embedded the example files I'm going to be using of Will's and Zoe's today. So you can see what those will look like then. This is a plugin, so you might not have that on yours, but yet. So, okay, so here's the template file. And I mean, it's the same, it just says underscore template. You're going to select this. You're going to Control C, copy it to clipboard. You can also type that in. And then when you are, so say we're in Will's right now, I'm going to delete this, right? And I'm going to Control V, and it's paste from clipboard. And this should paste exactly in the same spot. So you can do that with any file. You can always copy from clipboard. When you close file, it's going to ask you to erase the clipboard. Again, kind of, I'm sure you all understand that and might be speaking too much on it. But anyways, so I placed Will's here. And so where you will place yours, where you are. So something to note that I also liked with Will's especially is that each item is a piece, is a layer itself. So where we at? Oh, Oculus was this back piece. You know, things may be grouped in layers, or this is all really dependent on how you want to work and how you prefer to organize things. But again, I definitely recommend piecing this up as much as possible so that, I mean, Will did where you can pick the piece in properties. He's got his assigned materials this way. Again, this is telling him that he has multiple objects with this material. So that's only a problem if you think it is. Like if these aren't the same, or if you want editable copies of each other, it's cool. But so if Will were to assign by layer, though, he can easily do that, having already divided his model into pieces. So yeah, so this is pretty set up nice with that, and then different things in here. Okay, so with this, Will is going to save as on his end. He's going to click check texture or command line if it's Mac, however you can get this. And again, so then after that, he will, on his computer, get the embedded files folder. I put them both in here for now. This is the autosave file. You can turn it off and Rhino if it's bugging. I tend to, you know, just to know. I didn't realize you could do that until I did. So this is the embedded files folder that Rhino is creating for him of his textures. And this is great. It's all super packaged. Let's jump over to Zoe's. So we don't need roles anymore. We're going to go to Zoe's. Oops, is that it? So Zoe, again, had different things which are on different assigned materials by layer, whichever one you want to do works. There's things like this, which I think might be pretty good when you're maybe save your own file for yourself. And then the one that you're going to send and upload to me, which you will save as, you must always have to save as to a new one for that. Don't just hit save. Your textures will not package if you do that. So remember to save as. Something that Zoe could do here is if she's not using these things, it might be good to just delete those. And yes to all, because those aren't in here. That way, when I receive the file or when Zoe is packaging it on her end, we will not be getting 20 textures in here that she's not using. So that's what I was kind of mentioning with the SketchUp, downloading files, purging materials. When you download someone else's file, you never know what's in it. You don't know how they made their model. You don't know what things are embedded. There might just be like a lot of junk, to be honest. And this is the way to do that. You can delete them from here. You can purge them from the layers. Remember that purging command though is permanent, so use it wisely. And so I placed Zoe's here in this spot. And yeah, I think Zoe also did a nice job of dividing things by layer, depending on what was in her model. Really, really super important to do that. And I say that as like a tip. That's not you don't have to do this. This isn't, something that's required, but that's for sure a tip. I think that tip will pay off in situations and pay off when your files get really, really huge. So, and also when you share between each other with files. So we are going to now this is the master file. And just so you all are aware of what this will look like with your files in it, we're using work session. The work session is a way of having multiple Rhino files in the same file attached to one another. But it is a way of doing that where the file isn't massive. So you remember when we copied from clipboard things from one file and brought them into a new one, into mine? That was literally bringing the object and everything that is it, and it then lives in the file. With work session, you're kind of ghosting that process. So you're linking files and they're appearing in here, but they're not actually in here. So when I click open, I've set up a work session file already that I'm starting. This is asking, this is interesting to know. So this is asking if I want to save the file that I'm currently, my master file. So which doesn't matter. I mean, I could say yes or no to that. That's okay. Work session's basically asking that though, because they just want to know if you can edit over it or not. Okay. But anyway, so I've attached files in here. You can do that by, you're not doing this, by the way. This is not for the assignment. Do not worry about this. This is me showing you a tip of what I'm doing and then what could probably help you in the future. When you share files between each other, other classes, situations, this is just a good thing to know that it's possible. When you attach by this, I've already attached all your files into a folder, so I'm not really sure what the extent of files attaching here is. I doubt it's a lot. I mean, I'm sure you can get a lot, but I don't know what that is. But anyway, so that's my work session. And as you can see, Zoe's and Will's are in here because they were saved in their spot and placed there. So that's the idea of having you all having coordinates. So instead of doing those coordinates, we're just going to have you be saving on a square. Now, again, I'm getting like all these curves in here, and that's because they're in Zoe's file, they're in Will's, they're in everyone else's. So I guess this makes me think that something right off the bat, when you're in your file and you save it, let me go back to Zoe's for instance, Will's. I'm going to add this as a quick step. Sorry to do that, but we're basically just going to hide that layer. So you can turn it off. I think I can turn it off on my end. Yeah, I might be able to. Yeah, okay, never mind. So I'll be able to do that. So you can turn it off. You don't have to turn it off if you want to turn off the base. It's up to you. I'm gonna do this and see if it goes away. Yeah, okay. So I'm all set on my end with that. I won't be having 35 squares on top of each other, or 34 squares, what would have been. So you can turn it off, you can leave it, whatever. As long as your file is georeferenced to the spot that it's supposed to be in, that's what matters. So as you can see here, this is Will's file. In my master file, it is linked. So as you can see, it's ghosted. If I take this and move it, it's not gonna move because it's currently not the file I'm in. I'm in my master base file. If I wanted to be in Will's file, I could do work session reference, that active file. It's gonna ask me if I want to save my base. I'll say sure. And work session changes, yes. And then, oh, I guess I opened it. Oh, it's because I've opened it over here, so that's what's up with that. Nope. Let me do open. Nope. Nope. I don't need that. There's this. There's a lot of back and forth here with these things, but ideally this is a very, very simple process. Oh, wait. I'm going to not, I'm opening my work session. This one, I'm sure. And again, you can see that Zoe and Will have just come in here. It's loading their models. Oh, it already even saved me in the same spot. Super convenient. Again, if I wanted to work in Will's files, I could set that as my active. I don't need to save this. Rhino is going to reboot itself so that now I'm in Will's file. Zoe's is just now appearing. But again, Zoe's is that ghosted linked file, meaning that I'm not active in it. I can't edit anything in Zoe's right now, unless I were to right click and make it active. So this is something for you to just kind of like know that this can happen. It's super important when you have really big files. I completely recommend it and think that it's a lifesaver. And again, it's going to make this animation, this continuous animation you all are doing, really great and possible. So any extra steps, I've just added a few notes on decals and materials. Biggest thing to know are to know what you're doing when you're doing it and to always be aware that you are what materials you're using and what objects you're putting them on, because in the end we want to have everything super packaged, and I don't want to have to like kind of search down where things are and you know, lose stuff for you, and I want your models to be what they are. This is something I'm quickly going to note. Project 4, sample page here. Again, like many other assignments, you've gone in code view, you've copied this, and then you've placed it into your pages. So I'll go in here and then paste it there. And that's where you'll put all your images in here, just as you've done before. These are things I copied over from project 3. So you can literally just delete this. This is okay. That's fine. Or you don't have to delete them. You can just upload new here. That's fine too. That's probably better. Just upload new and leave these. But yeah, that's what I have today. I think what would also be helpful is share it a second. If everyone could upload a screenshot of your model, it doesn't have to be detailed, just kind of like an overview, axon view of something, you know, like very quick view capture. Then I can know where things are relatively. So yeah, that'll work that way. Just so I can kind of like catch red flags right away. So if any textures look off in the moment, I'll be able to message you and kind of see what happened there. But again, if you don't see the embed folder of images, not the end of the world, but like it's best to see that embed folder. If you don't though, and you've done it a million times and you've saved a lot and nothing's working, what I would really, really appreciate you doing, and I'm going to share my screen quick with this, is going into your folder, right? So will be Maya, going into images, dropping every JPEG, PNG, anything that you're using as a texture externally to make a custom material in here, because then I'm able to go back in and link them very quickly. Otherwise, it's really impossible for me to kind of dig through what was that folder, right? So keep that in mind. Be really, really aware of where things are and keep track, like definitely helps to keep track of them better. Helps me, it helps you, it helps sharing files. It's really helpful. So I'm always here with questions. If you need help with anything, I'm not quite sure if there was an expected date for resubmitting files, but I'm very comfortable with Wednesday at midnight. It could also be giving that leeway of Thursday if you need. I probably won't look at them until 1 p.m. Thursday. I mean, sorry, not 1 p.m. 4 p.m. Thursday. So that's like 4 p.m. Eastern. So that's a real big cutoff right there. And so yeah, I think with this, compiling should be a breeze, and everything is going to be geolocated very quickly. So again, be sure to download the template, place your file where it is in the square, save it. Yeah, save as, save with the textures. You can do it that way, and then upload everything. Yeah. Does anyone have any specific questions? It can be material related, file related, Rhino related right now, if they're quick, or you can feel free to message me later today. Yeah.
I just had a quick question about the seaplane. Are you going to be using one?
For the render or for the animation, you mean?
Yeah, I have like a depression at the very beginning of my model, and I don't want you to be able to see it. So I was wondering how I should handle that.
Well, you mean so there's a dip that you kind of want to hide, or you don't want that to be seen in the animation?
Yeah.
I think, well, there's always inherently some sort of seaplane in Rhino regardless, but I can work with Ishan, or I can talk with you specifically on, is there a way maybe you could like model it out or erase it from the file? Maybe if that's possible, or maybe I'm not
No, it's
quite
like
understanding.
you go in my model and then there's like a dip in the floor.
Oh,
So
I
if
see.
you use a seaplane, I don't want it to get cut off or something.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
No. So from what I can tell, how the animation would run, or how I would personally do that, is that you don't want it seen, or you do want it seen.
I don't want it seen from the outside, but I want you to be able to see it on the inside. So in mine, I just like put a surface there to block it because when I was planning my animation, but now things are coordinated. So
Okay. I might need to look at your case specifically if we could meet after. Maybe we could like troubleshoot tips on how to do that. But I mean, the animation itself in Bongo, I've used it. It's going to work linear. So, and I'm not sure if Ishan might add different points of interest or turning and panning. But for the most part, like certain things might be in view, might not be in, like that could be kind of controlled in a way.
Maya, from what I understand, it sounds like you should just add a surface. Just include whatever surface you were using to block out the view of that. Just put it in there, and if it's a problem, we can address it. But
okay, thank you.
Cool. So it's been confirmed that saving command works for Mac. Thank you, Maya, on that one. If anyone has issues with Mac related things, I can also step in there.
is there any other questions?
Where would the embedded file show up on your computer? Would it be in the same file that you save your Rhino model in?
Yep. So it's in the same file that you saved your Rhino file in, is what I've noticed. Rhino will like kind of keep it pretty native to the program. If you cannot find it, if it's missing, you might not have one. I think Rhino's a little tricky sometimes where it doesn't quite do that, or it didn't recognize it. But if you do have one and it's just missing, I'm going to show you quick how you can see that. I guess we could do read only. Maybe not actually. So, okay. So we are currently, right, we're currently in Will's file, right? So let's zoom into his model. If I click on this, which I know is textured, going into the properties, material, this has been, actually, let me take, I need to ungroup it. So I've got this, I see the material that's mapped on. I click here, I get the properties of the bitmaps that are making up my custom material, Will's custom material, sorry. So, and in here, there's sometimes ways where you can see where they're embedded. Oh yeah, there it is. So I can see that this is now existing in the embedded files texture. The thing I'm not positive on is if on your end, if your system would be telling you the origin, like the original file of your image, or if it would be giving you the embedded file. Does that make sense? So if I made a Rhino file on my computer, I brought in textures from my computer, this might not have the embedded file, it might be still kind of grasping that path from my
Right,
original.
I think
Yeah.
mine's pulling from the path that those images are saved in.
Okay, so the best thing to do in that case then, yeah, find that path and save every image that you've used in your model in its entirety, the only the ones you've used in your model, and put them in a folder. Again, like just like this, and then keep them together. The embedded files folder is just a quick way to that Rhino does that for you in a way, like for the sake of compiling on my end, packaging. But yeah, but if you can keep everything in the same file, that would be the most ideal. Yeah. So don't worry if you don't get that embedded folder file. Yeah, but it is great if you do get it though, because that's what I'll need most. Yeah. Andrew, do you have a question?
Yeah. Do you want us to include like the 3D warehouse items in the 3D folder as well?
No. So
Okay.
that's all for you. So these folders that are on the drive, oh, not this. Maybe not in there either. Okay, we'll just quickly go to it. The folders that are in the drive, you should only be putting what is in your final model, and then the textures that are attached to that model. Whether they're decals or bitmaps, JPEGs that you've made, exported in Photoshop, and then you're using them as materials. Only those in your images. Nothing from the SketchUp stuff, like, or you don't need like the sketch. I don't need the SketchUp models or anything. That's totally okay.
Okay.
So, but again, if you do have the case where you have imported SketchUp models, okay, and you have textures on those models that aren't yours, but your computer now has them, right? You're going to need to take those. Hopefully, when you save as your file, your new file, it'll save those textures. So again, these are like textures that aren't yours. They weren't made by you, but you've downloaded them and they're in your model. That's like if I take a pillow, if I like get a pillow or like this, and then this came with a model on SketchUp. I don't currently have that JPEG in my computer, if that makes sense, right? So I've downloaded this. I don't have that JPEG. That's kind of how you'll have to check back to, hopefully, like when you save this, it'll save that downloaded texture, if that makes sense, and then use it. Now, again, that's only if you're using things that were native to a SketchUp file that you didn't make and that existed in there. I'm pretty sure most of you probably aren't. If there's like a super specific case, but if you are, though, be aware that those embedded files might be elsewhere.
Okay, I got one more too. For the purge.
Yeah.
So when we're using that, we want that to be, after we've gotten everything to the white color, or does that do that automatically?
So that will be purge is when you've opened Rhino, you've imported SketchUp, and you don't have anything else in there that you've made. Like, no, you can have models that you've made, but do not have any of your textures with materials in there. You can't have anything that you've added materials to, because it will purge that as well. So that's when you've imported SketchUp, that's bringing like the SketchUp model, which is like a whole big mesh, and it's got, 10,000 different materials on it. Purge is the way to purge all of those materials off of it. If Purge doesn't work, you can just like manually delete all of those materials. I really recommend that because if you're not using any of those, because it will slow your system down, and you're going to have so many saved files on your computer that aren't yours. Yeah, nor do you need them. Yeah, so that's something to really, really work with. Is be aware of with SketchUp, and also when you download files, like make sure they're not super heavy with material. A good question. Yeah, but don't do that to your final model, right? Because then that will be erasing all of your materials. That's not a good idea. Yeah, and Rhino's going to ask you about that, and they're going to warn you, and then you listen to that. Yeah.
Yeah, because what I was doing the last go round on it was I would bring it into Rhino Purge, and then
Mm.
from there I would bring it in to the final model.
Okay. Yep. That's kind of what I've done. I've had a separate, whenever I've downloaded things from SketchUp, I always have a separate file that is only the stuff I'm importing. I copy it to clipboard. I bring it in a different way. I'm never like in my working file with SketchUp. These kind of like small things here and there, but that work for you, that you'll pick up on that. Yeah, we can all do like that. Yeah. Anything else? SketchUp wise, material. Yeah. Material mapping is a whole thing. If people are shifting materials or moving them, that the links that I provided on the directions talk about more into how to do that from the McNeil site. It's a little bit tricky, but like it works, so test it out, try it, Google it. Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, mapping is in when you move the material, like you're readjusting it, you're rescaling what you're mapping onto your objects, right? Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, I think the low volume of questions is an indicator that you did an incredible job, Meg, walking everybody through it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. I'm glad.
But I guess we'll see at Thursday at 4 p.m. whether or not that proves out. Okay, so yeah, like let's keep that deadline a for sure stop at Thursday. I mean, it needs to be like in your drive folder by 4 p.m. on Thursday. I think, it would be great if people are doing it before that, but I think most people probably heard the last time that you said, which was Thursday at 4 p.m. So that's the drop dead deadline. So make sure you're doing it before then if you can, just so we can also not be in a process where we're trying to figure all this out last minute.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I'd echo that too. The earlier you get it done, the earlier I can put it in a work session file and work with it even too, because I might incrementally work, but I will definitely be final checking and going through more of it Thursday night. So be sure to have your file in by then and correctly placed and everything's there. So, yeah, would be great. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Thanks again.
Cool.
Thanks everybody
Thank
for
you,
logging
everyone.
on.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
Bye.